Class of 2020. It's 2 years after our scheduled commencement. My heart is racing out of excitement to be back on campus, out of love of seeing so many of you in person, out of anxiety over giving this speech. More than that, my heart races from the hope that this commencement gives all of us, the hope of reunification, the hope of healing. We shared so much heart during our time at Brown. Heartbeats spent with friends, in classes, in the work of growing up, at least a little bit. Heartbeats spent waiting in line at the Ratty, admiring Untitled Lamp Bear, AKA Bluno, studying with friends at the Sci-Li or the Rock. Heartbeats spent in seminars, debating passionately for what we believe in, and in lectures, learning what a heartbeat is. In every second of our time here at Brown, we learned how to connect our hearts with the hearts of those around us. To share our hearts with others is an act of vulnerability, and thus of courage. I recall our first year orientation in 2016, when Undergraduate Council of Students President Viet Nguyen spoke about letting yourself cry in public. At the time, I disregarded his advice. I thought it would be embarrassing to sob in front of my new, cool peers. I had to look put together through the stress of extracurriculars and classes and work. This changed when I attended a workshop a few months later at the Swearer Center. It was an informal check-in, much in the same way acting troupes, athletic teams, or other extracurricular groups gathered just to say hi and hear about each other's day. At first, everyone was quiet, murmuring about feeling okay, doing okay. Then, someone told us they were struggling with their community work. I remember thinking, why would you admit that to a group of essentially strangers? But then another person said that they failed their first applied mathematics quiz. Soon, we all began to share. Then we all began to cry. I remember feeling so vulnerable, crying on the 5th floor of the Sci-Li, in a room with 40 other people. But it was because of this vulnerability that we started to care for one another, offering advice or just a tissue. By the end of the workshop, we weren't all best friends, but we were no longer strangers. We were a community. We were also a larger community the day after the 2016 US presidential election. And we were a community as we marched in the Me Too movement. It was one of the most important lessons I learned at Brown. While I was keeping my heart from harm, I was keeping it away from others. I was keeping it from healing and helping to heal others. It would be a lesson that I would learn again and again in the years that followed. With all of that in mind, I want to tell you the story of when my heart broke. My heart broke the summer between my first and second year at Brown, when my younger and only brother, Ian, died in his sleep from a heart arrhythmia. No warning, no prior illness, no family history. When I came back to Brown the following fall, I knew I couldn't grieve alone. I sought out the university's bereavement group. I spent the first meeting completely in tears. I could barely bring up the pain. But eventually, bearing my heart allowed me to reflect, to seek out the brighter memories of Ian, to bond with others who had experienced similar losses, and to learn to share my story with all of you. We each have stories to tell and stories to hear. I ask you now for a moment of silence to listen to your own heartbeat and to remember all those who have lost theirs or suffered unbearable pain in the years since we've been apart. Over 70 million heartbeats ago, the COVID-19 pandemic began, and decades of injustice and inequity came to a head. We left campus, we left each other, we ventured into a changed, hurting world. And now as we celebrate, we also hurt. Loved ones, family, friends, and millions more have and continue to suffer from COVID-19. Racism has led to the murders of George Floyd, Daunte Wright, Breonna Taylor, and countless others. Gun violence and misinformation have threatened our political systems and our lives. Climate change has devastated in the form of raging fires, tropical storms, cold fronts, and droughts. War still rages throughout the world. Reproductive rights and bodily autonomy have been overruled. Trans rights don't exist in Texas and are in danger in many other states. In Florida, it's not even okay to say gay anymore. Well, I would love it if when I say, you all say gay. Say? Gay. Say? Gay. One last time, even louder so they can hear us down in Florida. Say? Gay. It is not easy on our hearts to face the world. We see so many problems that need fixing. Meaningful change can be painful, complicated, seemingly impossible. Because of this, there's an impulse to harden the heart, to hide it in pessimism, ignorance, or denial. We say, it's always been that way. I don't know how to help. It's not worth it to try. And this may be our response, but it ignores symptoms and hopes illness and injury just go away on their own. During my final years at Brown, I was able to see illness and its symptoms firsthand at the Rhode Island Hospital. I interned with cardiac electrophysiologists, who every day see patients whose hearts have stopped functioning, whose atria flutter, whose ventricles contract at random. I learned even then that healing is possible, but it does not happen in a vacuum. We lean on others for expertise and resources like pacemakers. We lean on family and friends for support through the tough surgeries and recoveries. We do not and cannot heal alone. And it is the same with emotional pain. Because when our hearts break, we owe it to ourselves and our communities to heal from the failed expectations of what we thought our post-graduation years might be, from the failed expectations we all put on ourselves, from the pandemic and the problems and the pain, from a commencement speech that was postponed for 2 years. It is our duty as Brown alums to do so, because in doing so, we can go on to heal the world around us. We must create spaces to talk, to work, and to help one another, just as we did at Brown. We must be vulnerable, we must let ourselves feel, and then we must move forward. Class of 2020, as our hearts swell with joyful emotion in this celebration, let's use all we've learned, all we've experienced, to strengthen and keep our hearts open, to heal when needed, and love as fiercely as we can, to love meaningfully and to use that love to make the world a better place. Now we can all celebrate twice as hard because this is both commencement and reunion weekend. Congratulations, class of 2020!